Hey guys, I'm really excited to bring you today's deck guide. We're going to be focusing on EVO Control Sword. That's right, guys. EVO Control Sword. And here's the thing. I can't believe I'm about to say this, but this deck is a serious consideration for Tier 1. The deck I'm bringing you hit rank 1 on the Swordcraft rankings and achieved a score or class rating of 2,147. That is no mean feat at this stage of the season at all. And yeah, as soon as I start to see scores like that and beyond ratings up at GM, then I pay attention. And so I've been taking this deck for a spin. And not only that, but this is a really fun deck to play, guys. In fact, it's definitely up there as like in my top 3 most interesting decks to play this season. So I am really loving this deck right now. Let's jump into the deck. Let's take a look at the cards and talk about how this works. And then we're going to show you some gameplay. If you like the sound of that, obviously don't forget to hit that like button down below, subscribe and comment along as we go. Right, let's jump on in. Okay, so the name of the game with this deck, guys, is there's so many ways to evolve in this deck for free. All right. Now, the first thing to realize when you've got a deck that does that is that you can be so much more liberal with your actual evolve points and your super evolve points, because, you know, instead of thinking, oh, I've got to pick and choose when these happen because when they run out, they're gone. You're like, well, I've got tons more to come, right? So it allows you to be quite aggressive with your evolve points and your super evolve points and use them almost as quickly as possible, actually, because that then usually when you use a super evo, it forces a super evo out of your opponent in order to deal with that board. Not always, but very often. And then they don't have the resources and then you do. So this is why it's a really good control deck, because it basically drains your opponent's resources and can just keep adding waves and waves of answers in the late game. It is really cool. So let's actually break the deck down and talk about how we do that. So it's really important with this deck. First, stage 1 is to get an early curve and to compete for board. In this type of sword, we are just trying to not lose the game in the first 5-6 turns, right? So we're trying to do everything we can to keep up. And that means we want to draw our Luminous, our Devotee in the early game, our Grimnir. These are fantastic in the first few turns because Devotee is such a good card because not only can you play it on 2, but you can also play it on 3, right? With the Gilded Boots that it produces, that will give this guy Rush and +1, and suddenly you've got a 3 attack on 3. And that'll usually clear whatever they've played on at that stage of the game. And again, the name of the game is just to survive, right? So then in addition to that, we've got Lyria, obviously another good card to play early. She's pretty good at sort of trading in early game, as is Luminous, Lance Trooper. Beyond that, and this is where it depends whether we're going first or second, but we really want to be looking for a Zeta and Beta, because Zeta and Bea, because these obviously is 2/3/2s. So this is another great way of achieving what we've already said we want to do in the early game. And of course, Zirconia, if we can start Evo in with a Zirconia, is perfect. This is the perfect Evo target, as is Luminous Mage. But obviously, we will Evo any of these earlier cards, like we said. If it keeps us in the game and keeps us competing with the board, we will absolutely do that. So that's kind of what you're doing in the early game. Now, once you transition into the mid game, what you're looking to do is probably Evo a Gildaria if you're coming up against a lot of pressure. No problem spending an Evo pot on your first Gildaria. The second 2 will come through later and they'll get their free super Evo, right? But first one, absolutely worthwhile doing, especially in those pressure board situations. Alternatively, we want to be Amelia in again with our first one fairly early on, right? So if you're wondering like, well, don't want to be using that for a big combo. Yeah, maybe in the later game, but your first one, you absolutely want to be Evo. You want to be playing because, you know, essentially she only costs 3, right? You play her down at 6, then she gives you 3 points back. So you really want to be playing her. She draws into your late game options. Now, when it gets into late game, guys, we start to just get options for days with this deck. Obviously, Amalia, we just run a single copy. She's really good at giving us a kind of non-Evo threat, but also playing lots of bodies down to feed Gildaria. For those of you who don't know, Gildaria, once you've played 20 followers this game, basically super evolves for free, which is just bonkers. Really, really powerful ability. Of course, we've got the Sandalphon just sitting there waiting to come out based on all these evolves. And then into the late game, so many combos, guys. Like we can play Gildaria into so let's Seaphon. Let's just quickly talk about Seaphon. This is one of the new cards, and this is the card that the whole deck's based around in many ways, because what this does is once you've got Skybound Art, it evolves all followers. But if you've got Super Skybound Art, then it basically super evolves the board. And this deck is phenomenal with this card because you can play Luminous Mage and Seaphon on 9, and all of a sudden you've got an entire board that super evolves, which is just insane, right? You can do Gildaria into Seaphon, but you can also do things like, you know, Lance Trooper, Zirconia, Seaphon. There's so many ways to do that. And of course, you've still got the Amelia into Luminous Mage on that costs you 8 play points, giving a barrier to the whole board. So it's just about working out the matchup, like against Abyss, for example. Probably don't want to be doing that because we know he's got the, is it Fidel or whatever, that basically just does -2. So the barrier, I think things not as good in that matchup, but in other matchups, like against Sword, for example, it's really phenomenal. So yeah, it's just really, really cool deck. So many options into the late game. And then we also have the Golden Knight. And the Golden Knight as well, I just love this card. Like, playing this on 9 feels amazing. Like, the 4... so not only does it do 4 AoE, because it says deal 4 damage to all enemy followers, but it's actually often doing 6, not 4. Because when you play this on 9, it triggers all the modes. And one of them is Super Evo. And of course, if you Super Evo and you've got the Grimnir Crest in play, that does 2 AoE damage to all followers. So you're actually doing 6 AoE damage. Then you get Super Evo, so you can trade with something, you know, do 1 damage to enemy face, and you're also healing 4. And the heal is really, really massive. But I do love the fact that even though you obviously want to play this on 9 where you can, I love the fact that the way this is designed, that you can play it earlier. That's the problem with the 9 drop, right? Is that sometimes you just don't get to play it. Whereas having this kind of like the lesser ability version of it, but for cheaper to play earlier, gives you that tactical flexibility, and that's why I think this card's really, really good. So the deck's just phenomenal, guys. Obviously, in the late game, you can even do things like Zeta and Beer for 6, giving you a Storm unit, and then you can use Seaphon on that, right? So that it gets kind of a Super Evo, and that can be 6 damage face. Or you can kind of manually Evo it and play Gilnalise into it to get more. So there's so many ways of finishing. And then last but not least, the final piece of the puzzle is the Knightly Ardor. And this thing is also really, really crutch at times. Sometimes simply just to give you 6 heal, right? That could win you the game, for example, if what you're trying to do is defend against Albert. But more often than not, it's really saving for that turn where your opponent just can't get rid anymore of the big waves on the board. And then you basically take the first mode here, which says give the leftmost ally can attack 2 times per turn. And this essentially becomes like the Albert effect. You can think of it as like a 5-cost Albert when a board survives. So obviously, if you play like Amalia, for example, this will be the most left-hand card because all of the little steel-clad knights come out afterwards. And then obviously, if they leave Amalia up, oh my god, you then go... you know, you could play, for example, Seaphon to evolve Super Evo if you've got no points left, and then you can play Knightly Order and attack twice, and she basically does, you know, 18 damage just on her own. So it's this deck's just got so many late game answers, and it's all about that. It's all about controlling the board, getting into that late game where you can then suddenly just start evolving for free all the time. Obviously, Gran and Jita evolves for free once it's SBA'd. You've got the enhanced abilities of Zeta and Beer, the Golden Knight super evolves for free, Gildaria super evolves for free, Seaphon evolves for free. It just gets absolutely overwhelming in the late game. It's so powerful. So that is the deck, guys. Let's now jump into some games and see this deck in action. Alrighty, so first up, we are going to be playing against Rune. But honestly, like this is not the best opening, as we just talked about previously. Like we really want to be looking for those early cards, and I do like keeping an Amelia where I can. And I've got this bad habit when I play Rune of thinking that they're a slow deck, but obviously with the new Dirt Rune, they're actually a little bit quicker out of the blocks. So we'll see if we are able to survive this. We're going to just throw Gilnalise down just to sort of stem the tide here. Remember what I said in the early game? It's just all about kind of surviving and transitioning. So this feels like a perfect Zeta and Beer. All the fancy tricks come later, right? So it's all just about like staying in the game, not getting overwhelmed in the early game, and making that Zirconia on Evo. That's like the first sigh of relief that I feel. Ah, so he is a Dirt player, but playing Anangria. A lot of Rune players starting to do that now. I think it makes a lot of sense. So it's kind of a nice trade for him here. So we have to do this awkward thing where we're going to Gilnalise. And we're going to Evo a Gilnalise, I believe. I hope. We're going to Evo Gilnalise, literally just to kill the Anangria, right? We're not going to attack here. It's just to kill it and pass. Let the ward die. So actually, the Morelli card is a little bit awkward, I found, with this deck. And you often have to do something like this. So we've thrown the, you know, as in like an early Morelli. Like later game, it's no problem. But yeah, so we throw in the second beta, Beer, Zeta and Beer, sorry, just to clean up. But we're kind of like a bit behind on board. But that's okay. So now we are transitioning with turn 8, and we find our beautiful Amelia into Luminous Mage combo. That's definitely worthy of a Super Evo. Clear the board and have a nice barrier board. And against Rune, this has traditionally been quite a good one. But quite an interesting response, right? What he does is he just Normans and creates his own barrier board and then just passes, just doesn't even attack. And I'm like, I can't develop the board and I can't kill anything off. So it's kind of a little bit awkward, actually. So the best I can do is clear the little minions off and can't actually use any of my play points. So kind of interesting counter on his part. And then obviously all my barriers have gone so he can use his AoE. So I think our opponent played that pretty well. So we're going to Lyria now and draw our big bad knight. Yeah, so not like the most amazing turn, but a bit of a kind of like setup turn, really. And down comes Sindolphin as well, putting us down all the way to 10. So this is where Golden Knight just does its thing right on 9. The 6 AoE damage, and then the heal. Perfect timing, really, for us. So we got rid of one Sandy. We've got another one to come. Super Evo on the Penelope, which I always think is a pretty good move, to be honest. Gildaria time. Help me clear this board. So we do just take the draw option. And we'll keep 2 units up. At this stage of the game, like, the draw is really good because everything is good now, right? Like, we're in that stage of the game where we're going to get free Evos, free Super Evos. So we just don't want to run out of cards. Okay, and that's our Sandy into the game. And first Seaphon down. I believe that gives us the Super Evo. It does. And you got to remember, guys, in this deck, right, is that not only is Seaphon giving you the Super Evos, but it's triggering the Grimnir. Right, now, obviously, we don't have anything that can just deal with the Lelanthium, right? So we need to get rid of that Super Evo, and he's just used it. So that's his big kind of banish 2-turn. Once the Super Evos go, it's a little bit easier to deal with. But we still can't actually clear it here, which is worrying, right? Because even though we're at back up to 18 health, it's like, we don't just want this thing sticking around all game. Oh, and I think he's just found a third Sandy. Interesting. I think he's running 3. So because he has got very little dirt, I am trying to get rid of it. But there we go. Like, oh boy, that Sage, man. That the giving yourself essentially another 2 5/5s. That's what that 3 play points did for you. So what we're going to try and do is kind of get a wide Super Evo, right? So we can kind of kill this thing off multiple times. So this is where this deck is good at dealing with this. It's when you get to this kind of late game Seaphon. And now we can just kill that thing like, what, 4 or 5 times and eat up all the dirt. Now he's got the Rayo as well. The Rayo comes down and absolutely eliminates the board. Our opponent is game. So we're going to play our third and final Zeta and Beer. Play it on 6, obviously, so we get the Bane to kill off his Rayo and then go face. Push a bit more damage. It's a fun matchup. I do feel like slightly favoured into Rune with this deck, I have to say. Whereas against Sword, as in Loot Sword, I feel slightly unfavoured, but it's definitely winnable. But I do think that Loot Sword is slightly favoured in it. So, but they're both kind of close. I do feel like the Rune match is a little bit more favoured though, because look how well we can just grind out the late game. We've still got another Seaphon. We've still got, look at all the value we've got here, you know. And he's got like 7 cards left. And we're back to 20 health as well. So insane. Okay. So we're going to play the Luminous Mage here, and then we're going to drop the Seaphon again. Another board of Super Evo targets. Guys, that's 5 Super Evos in that one turn. He's supposed to get 2 Super Evos in a game of Shadowverse. We just got 5 in one turn. And we didn't pay a single point. Okay, so this time we got the Luminous into Grimnir into either Zeta and Beer if we need removal, or we got the Granangita for the value and to draw into our kind of mid-game, late-game options. So this is a nice, pretty nice start. There's a question here about whether you use the coin to get Grimnir there. Yeah. It's kind of slightly awkward. I wonder whether he should have traded there. It probably should, because what we can do now is use this to trade off here and kind of force his Phylene into the 2-3. Can't Evo that. So I feel like he maybe made a mistake there. I think he'd have been better trading. So we're going to use old Zeta and Beer just to kind of trade this board away and take over. Now Evo's online. This time he can ramp with Liu Feng, and he can get call off as well. Really showcasing where the buff really helped Liu Feng. It's more about him being able to play other things with it now. So we're actually just going to go with the draw option here, and we'll manually evolve to clear the board. And we are down to 12, so, you know, we are going to have to Probably spend one of these points here on a Gilnalese. But again, that's okay, right? Because we know that we're going to get extra Evos and Super Evos for days later on if we can just get there. So you quite often use one of them at least on a Gilnalese. I would fully expect that. And also getting this guy down, this gal down, the devotee, you know, she gives you gilded boots, and then when she dies, she gives you the goblet, right? And that's another 2 heal. There it is. Now, this board is always quite a nice one to see, right? Because you've got things like Gildaria, deals with 2/2s for days. You've also got the Grimnir crest down, so even just a Super Evo would help. And we'll play the extra point to get 2 more health. So Galmeo gets rid of the Gildaria. The thing is, like, we're so happy, and this is the thing about creating these wide boards over and over again. Like, if we're forcing his potential storm units to trade with us, that's great, because there's no way he can just out-trade us, right? It's what makes this deck such a good control deck, because it just can generally outvalue. So Seaphon on. This one's just an Evo. It's not a Super Evo. But that's all right. You know, if you need to use one like that, that's absolutely fine. No problemo. Olivia. What we got? Ocean Rider? No. Okay. So, because we've got only a 2 health unit down, it's kind of like a good opportunity to get like a dud, the Zirconia body, and our Sandalphon down, right? Put the pressure on. Kind of builds a decent board without... I don't know, it feels like a somewhat, like a good way of getting rid of a like slightly clunky turn. Ah. So we'll be using his last Super Evo on a Gilnalese, and that's fine. Like, see how we forced him? We forced him to use Storm to remove us. We forced him to use Super Evos on Gilnalese to heal. And that's absolutely fine, because I feel like in this matchup, we are better at creating endless value. Now, don't get me wrong, this Dragon deck can create a lot of late game value as well. And it has its own kind of like, you know, Super Evos and all the rest of it. Like free Super Evos, but I feel like we can do more. Okay, this time it is a super... Or is it? Was it just an Evo? Might have just been an Evo, actually. So down comes the Wise Dragon. And we don't actually have a way of clearing the Wise Dragon either. Oh, no, we do. Sorry. Again, it's the Super Evo. It's the trigger of the Grimnir. But actually, we had enough there to finish the game. GG. So let's see how we get on against Abyss. So again, we found a couple of early drops. Keeping the Amelia for the transition into the mid game. Don't really want Knightly Ardor. Knightly Ardor is a weird card because it's a bit of a useless dead card for a long time. Obviously, it can be really powerful in the right situation. You definitely get away without running it in the deck, but it does give you another win con, so I like having a single copy. So we're going to get the Luminous Mage down. Evo Lily. Okay. I mean, I know it's been around since set 1, but you sometimes just forget, like, there are those turns with a Luminous Mage where it can just, like, win the game, right? Because it's such a certain type of board state that at turn 5, if they don't have an answer to it, which can often be the case. I mean, obviously, there are many things that can deal with it. If you'd have had, like, the Devotee, for example, that's what I was worried about, but that would have been the hard punish. But yeah, it's just one of those cards where it can just completely take over the game. And then we're going to go Super Evo Amelia for the win. So the deck can just beat down as well. So there you have it, guys. As you saw there in the gameplay, this deck has got an ability to just kind of beat your opponent down with great early tempo, and it can play deep into the kind of control style, right, with kind of like endless value. I think this is a phenomenal deck right now. It is going to be really interesting to see where it ends up on the tier list, because already in my book, this will be going up in the next match snapshot, and I honestly think that this deck is going to come through quite strong. So yeah, give it a shot on ladder. Let me know how you're finding it. Is there anything that I'm missing in terms of the deck build? As I say, like, the guy who built this got to rank 1 and put up a great score, but you may have some alternative ideas that also work well. That's fine. So let me know down below in the comments. Thanks for all the support. Do subscribe to the channel. We're pushing, remember, for those 5K subs so we can do a big celebration stream, and it'd be great to have you join me for that. If you enjoyed this one, check this one out next. And thanks for all the support, guys. I'll see you in the next one.